Beta Upsilon Chi, Bucks, presents Man to Men, the premier audio journal for men who live faithfully and lead courageously. I'm Jared Musgrove, and today we welcome Adam Christing. He is the author of the new book, The Laughter Factor, 5 Humor Tactics to Link, Lift, and Lead. Love that title. What you need to know about Adam is that he's an accomplished comedian, speaker, and entertainer with over 25 years of experience. He has performed for thousands of corporate clients, just including Fortune 500 companies, nonprofits, and more. He joins us today on Man to Men. Adam, it's great to have you here.
Jared, great to see you. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's a lot of fun just reading your bio. I mean, you have an extensive client list from the Green Bay Packers to Buckner International, the Salvation Army, and the Ritz-Carlton. I mean, what a life, man.
And you know what? My mom still wonders if I'm going to get a real job at some point. So far, so good, you know?
Right. You just put that client list in front of her.
I want to tell you something interesting that might be helpful to your listeners. When the Tonight Show hosts, when the succession happens and there's a new host comes on, right? They have this tradition where they say to, like what Johnny Carson heard it all the way to, Jimmy Fallon. And that is, you'll use everything you ever learned. And so my background as a comedian, as a youth pastor, as a magician, as an entrepreneur, all those things come into play. And I just felt like sharing that.
That's fantastic. No, I love that. I did not actually know the youth pastor was back there. Yeah. That didn't come up in my research.
Which is a lot like doing stand-up comedy.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. In fact, I'm sure it's rife with comedic moments, both intentional and not.
Yes. I was taught in university. I went to Biola University, and there were a lot of professors who did not believe in the missing link of evolution. Or they said, what is the missing link of evolution? And I said, I think I found it because I'm a junior high youth pastor.
So true. So true. As the father of some young men, one just got out of junior high, one's going into it. That resonates. That resonates.
And, I love that background, Jared. I have discovered that the questions that, let's say, students in junior high and also in college are asking are the best questions.
They are.
About who am I? Where am I going? How do I get there? What is my purpose? And sometimes as we get older, we stop asking those big questions and we start asking questions like, how am I going to get a raise or about savings or even fitness? Sometimes those are very good questions, but they're not ultimate questions.
Right. But they're definitely trajectory questions. One thing I've really enjoyed in just getting to know your work through a mutual friend, Adam, is that I think that you are funny, but you're also a serious thinker. I think you're serious about God. I think you're serious about those bigger life questions. I'm looking forward to the conversation today, but I do want to start with humor because you've built a career around humor. And one thing I want to talk to you about, because I think you've thought about this, humor has just candidly, man, become so caustic and coarse with few exceptions, really. How's your journey shown that laughter and comedy can actually be a form of grace, God's grace in the life of a believer?
Such a great question. I'll never forget one time I did a school assembly program. This is back in the era when a lot of schools, especially in California, they would bring in a speaker and they wanted them to talk on the topic of saying no to drugs, saying no to gangs, that kind of thing. So I did I did a clean comedy performance with a message. And this moment just struck me. This is so many years ago now, but this student came up to me and he was just in shock. He said, I didn't know comedy could be clean. It was like he had no frame of reference for that. Whereas, I grew up, and maybe some of your listeners, because of, reruns and YouTube and stuff, but like the Andy Griffith Show and comedy variety shows. And so one thing I've discovered is we can replace vulgarity with variety. And so maybe you like to sing, or maybe you play a little guitar, maybe you learned how to juggle. There's so many ways to get people laughing and linking together without relying on the 4-letter word. I tell people fun is not a 4-letter word.
That's so true. No, that's right. As someone who was raised on Nick at Night and the Dick Van Dyke Show and I Love Lucy, I'm like, man, you go back and rewatch some of those and they're just really clever.
Yeah, that's right.
And truly, they're timeless because of that. It's like the joke is not dependent on that moment in history. It's something that's really true about our humanity.
I totally agree. If you were to take a clip from like the I Love Lucy show where they're in the chocolate factory, for example.
Right. Classic.
I don't know. That's probably 70 years old now. I don't even remember. But it is still funny today. And there's a saying that even some of the raunchy comedians will say, and I have a friend who's produced some big time HBO specials, and the inside lingo that people say is funny is funny.
Mm.
And so when we started this organization, Clean Comedians, we came up with this motto. In fact, I came up with this motto. I was very proud of it. And the motto is, it doesn't have to be filthy to be funny.
So true.
But Jared, I totally blew it one time. I had that printed on about 100 brochures, and we mailed them out to corporations and theaters and churches, but there was a typo. Oh, no. And instead of saying, it doesn't have to be filthy to be funny, it said this: Clean Comedians is an association of professional comedians who believe it doesn't have to be funny. It just kind of takes the pressure off.
I'm intrigued. I'm in. I'm maybe leaning in on that one.
Yeah.
Well, man, one thing I also, that you've touched on some, and I got to listen to you just recently on the Harvard Business Review. And I realized that's a tight kind of, esoteric edited hour, but some things came through just about faith and being funny. And I think we both love the God of the Bible, and his presence and his personality enjoys laughing, enjoys celebration. We see it throughout the scriptures. So how do you think humor reflects God's heart for his people, just especially in the messier parts of life? You talk about pain some in the book.
Yes. I had a grandfather who sadly passed away, Jared, and he would tell me that he was drunk for the first 40 years of his life, and then he was sober the next 45 years of his life. And he had some of the best sayings. And I'll get back to your question because it relates to it. He said things like, in the 12-step group that he was part of in getting sober and finding his higher power, he would say things like, pour me a drink. And so there was this interesting link between the pain and the humor. And I think sometimes churchgoers, for example, feel like they have to have this external, like I've got it all together appearance. But when you go into recovery movement, you find this total connection between humility, humor, and just total honesty. And people experience breakthrough recovery, transformation in their lives. But there was a book that I know you're a book guy, and so am I. In fact, I think this might be the first podcast I've ever done, Jared, where I see my book on your shelf.
Oh, great.
And on mine.
If I've got it, I want to represent it. I really enjoyed it last night.
Oh, thank you. But I read a book many years ago that's not really a joke book, but it was a profound book by Elton Trueblood, and it's called The Humor of Christ. And it was never a big bestseller, but it influenced a lot of scholars. And sometimes I think we can look at the scriptures, for example, or even at history with almost like stained glass lenses, where we don't realize what Elton Trueblood discovered in his research is Jesus himself used humor something like 30 times.
Right.
He used exaggeration, some of the tools that I'm sure we'll talk about that are in my book, sarcasm, exaggeration, poking fun. And so when we read these things today, we frame it as like it's all serious. And he's usually making a serious point. Why do you try to take a speck of dust out of your brother's eye when you have a log jutting out of your own eye? Mm-hmm. I'm confident that people laughed at that as a funny picture, but he was also making a point. So humor is kind of like money. It makes a wonderful servant, but a terrible master. Mm-hmm. And so I know many insecure comedians are just always trying to get that validation of getting the laugh. But there's a nice balance. It's a wonderful tool. And as you know, a merry heart does good like medicine. And science is totally validating that in study after study that it's good for our nervous system. It helps us relax. But what I've discovered in writing this book that surprised me was the research showing how it also connects us and bonds us. Like you really can't be mad at someone that you're laughing with, right? So it's a connector. And I like to say that humor is a shortcut to trust.
Yes. And that's where I want to go with this interview, because you've got young men and some more seasoned men listening, I believe that every man is called to be a leader, at the very least to lead himself. And most of us will be in positions where we are leading others. Some of us will be in positions where we are leading leaders in some cases. So if humor can be a shortcut to trust, which I think is essential in leadership for Christian men who are trying to lead, Adam, at work, in fraternities, at church, how can introducing lightness or humor lead to deeper credibility as a leader?
I want to mention, you've got me thinking about books now because I'm looking at your backdrop there, and I know you're into study. But think about two of the best-selling books of the last probably 100 years. One is Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. So that's a book about leadership. I think that sold 40 million copies.
It is.
And then you think about Rick Warren, a pastor, at the time he was pastor of Saddleback Church, The Purpose-Driven Life, 20 million copies. My point is not, best-selling, but why do these books resonate? Carnegie's book is still selling today, like 100 years later.
That's incredible.
I think the common link is, and I think Rick Warren, his opening line of that book is, it's not about you. And so I think as men, we need to realize that leadership, though, obviously, as you mentioned, we need to lead ourselves. It's about other people. It's how can I serve them? So I try to use humor very strategically. So last week I was in Denver hosting a president's gathering for a university. And there are times I'm walking up to the platform and things are shooting through my mind like, oh, this would be funny. Or I could tease him about that, or I could say this, but that wasn't the moment. It was a reflective moment. It was a moment where a student was talking about how her life had been transformed by this university. And so I have to adjust. So the goal as a leader is really not to be in the spotlight, but to shine the spotlight on other people. And humor's a great way of doing that. If you can laugh with people and not at them, for example, and make them feel celebrated. So I hope you maybe you already have this quiz that we have where you discover your laugh language. If you can listen and understand what makes someone else laugh and tap into that, that is a real advantage as a leader, because you're making people feel like, wow, he loves my dad jokes, or he always notices that I wear a funky jacket, or whatever. You're like listening and observing. But it goes back to, I think everyone's tuned into another podcast, let's call it WIIFM. What's in it for me, right? And so people they're not walking around thinking about you. I don't want to shatter anybody's dreams. Even your mom is probably not waking up thinking about you, probably more than anyone else. But we're self-bent creatures, right? So if we can enter into the conversations people are already having in their head, where am I going? How am I doing? My emotional needs, my spiritual needs. If we can tune into that, and humor helps us do that, we can really impact other men, other people.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. I think, Adam, what you've done is I thought and reflected last night after you were gracious enough to send me an advanced copy of the book. As I read through it, and even as we're talking here, I truly believe you've written a leadership book. It's got some very practical things and 5 humor tactics that really make up the bulk of the book. I'd love to not give away too much because I want the guys to get the book, but
I can give away the store. It's all good.
You're kind. But I would love to talk through the 5 humor tactics you talk about: surprise, poking, in-joking, wordplay, and amplify. Can you just give us an overview of each of those humor tactics?
Yes, let me back up a little bit and say one myth that people have is they think, oh, he's really funny and I'm not. But I think every human being is also a humor being. And it's sort of like, have you ever met someone who says, I'm just really not good with remembering names?
Oh, yeah.
Well, they might actually be good at it if they simply took the time to listen to someone's name and link it to their face. Same way with humor is you do have a sense of humor, even if you're not a professional comedian or a great speaker, and you can get better at those things too. But the key is to understand what makes you laugh, because that's probably your laugh language.
True.
And so you don't want to try to be the big time storyteller who exaggerates if your laugh language is surprise, for example. And that's the first of I also call them humor tactics.
Yes.
Surprise is probably the very essence of humor. And you don't have to tell a joke, for example, to make someone laugh. And so at this event where I was emceeing recently, this wonderful man, even though most of the folks were from the Denver area, he kept saying y'all, which I find cool, charming.
Right.
But it stood out. I mean, he probably said it 6 times when he was interviewing some parents at this university. And so he doesn't know this, and hopefully this will reach him before the podcast airs. But I bought this plaque called Shalom Y'all. Yeah, Shalom Y'all.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to get it in the mail. And I don't even think I'm going to put a note with it. He'll probably figure out who it's from. And it'll make him laugh, but it'll also celebrate who he is. So there are lots of ways to surprise people. That's the first tactic. And the next one that I think you mentioned, what was the next one you mentioned? I want to go in the order.
Which is really interesting. That seems very difficult to do. And you talk about that a little bit in the book.
Yeah, that is the second one, poke. And that, you're right, that is the trickiest, because sometimes comedy can be cruelty that's kind of cloaked in fun.
Mm-hmm.
And so you've probably heard the saying, the truth is often said in jest.
Yes.
So you want to be really careful here as a leader, if you're mentoring people, if you're into sales, whatever it is humor has a target. The safest way to poke is to poke fun at yourself. So, for example, I used to get on platforms and I would try to impress them with a magic trick or a funny joke or whatever. And now I'm learning to start by making fun of myself. And so a number of years ago, I made a movie, Jared, and because I was the guy who raised the money and I was the co-producer, the co-director, I, of course, cast myself in my own film.
Right.
But what happened is my acting was so bad, I got cut out of my own movie. And it's kind of embarrassing. I became the narrator. But when I tell a story like that, people are like, oh, I can relate to this guy. So we relate to each other through our failures, through our flops. And so the best way you can use the laugh language of poke is to poke fun at yourself. But it is cool to tease, rib, josh other people. You just want to make sure you're doing it in a way that's actually builds them up.
Yeah.
So one time I was hired to roast 11 executives with a huge accounting firm.
Ooh.
And I could have just gone after their weight or poke fun at their race, but no. If in doubt, leave it out. I never go after anybody's, gender, their faith, anything like that. But I found little quirks about them, right? And I made sure I spent hours prepping this, but I made sure that these were areas that they didn't mind being teased about, right? So one guy, it's his golf game. Somebody else is hooked on coffee, whatever. Mm-hmm. And what I did was I zeroed in on that quirk, and they knew it was kind of a wink, wink thing, right? They knew that I was really celebrating them, but I was roasting them, and they laughed the hardest. That's probably the best gauge, is if you're teasing someone and they're laughing with you and they don't feel laughed at, you're on the right track.
It's good. It's really helpful.
So that's that one. Now here's one that I haven't really seen covered too much in a book, and I call it in jokes.
Right.
And as a pro comedian, this is probably my favorite tactic for doing humor. And I bet all of your listeners, like, fraternity life is so packed with in jokes.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's one of the glues that holds us together.
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, I remember in university, some silly stuff like, they hid my bed sheets or they gave me 2 left shoes. They found a matching pair of shoes. I'm trying to put my shoes on. They're both left feet. I could never do that kind of thing at a comedy club. But if I'm back with those guys, we're talking about those stories, it's like we repeat the stories. We love it. So in jokes, comedians call this callbacks.
Yeah.
Where you call back to a shared experience, the time you guys got lost when you were driving to Phoenix or whatever it is. And it makes everyone feel like, hey, we're part of a club, a special group.
Yeah.
In the book, I've never shared this on a podcast, so I'm excited to share this, but in the book, I do talk about this. I went into a coffee house with my wife in Asheville, North Carolina. Mm-hmm. And I totally forgot that I was wearing a shirt of one of my favorite rock bands, King's X. And this man stood up and came toward me like I was his long lost best friend. I forgot I was wearing the shirt. Yeah. And I thought, oh my goodness, I don't remember who this guy is. I don't recognize him. And it was just the shirt. It was just because he was into the same band, which, they might have 50,000 followers on Spotify where, Taylor Swift probably has 300 billion followers, whatever. Right. But we had this instant bond. He's like, dude, King's X, is Gretchen Goes to Nebraska your favorite album? And we're just like bonding because we had this like inside language, So that's the key to in-jokes. And remind me the next one. I should know it by heart.
Wordplay.
How could I forget that?
Yeah.
That's like
also not easy, but wonderful when it works.
Yeah. And you know what I've discovered? This is crazy. Like even at Fortune 1000 companies, I mean, I'll do some humor that's a little more sophisticated, but if I want to be sure they're going to be laughing together, I'll hand out like 4 of the worst dad jokes of all time.
Man.
You know, like my uncle is addicted to drinking brake fluid, but he's not worried. He says he can stop at any time. Something really bad like that.
Dad jokes bring us together.
Yeah. And it's not a coincidence. They're not called weird uncle jokes.
That's right.
They're not.
Yeah, that's so true.
They feel like family. They feel like you're hanging out, camping together. And you've seen, dad jokes have gone viral on YouTube and stuff. And so, but wordplay is beyond dad jokes. It can be puns. It could be clever quotations. So I was giving a commencement address one time and I'd never, maybe one other time I'd done it. And I felt really nervous. And I thought, I've got to wow them with a joke. And no, I made this dramatic statement to the graduating class. And I said, I'll kind of reenact it for you here a little bit. I had like a gold 3x5 card in my jacket pocket. And I said, I'm about to share a quotation with you that could rock your world. And I pulled it out dramatically. And I said, Winston Churchill said, we are all worms, but I do believe I am a glowworm. Then from there, I talked about how you are light and you want to share your light and your gift with the world, whatever your calling is, whatever you feel is your purpose in the world with work. And so it's a clever quote, but it's not hilarious. And so my point with wordplay is it doesn't mean you have to be just doing dad jokes all day long, but find sayings, quotations, proverbs. The technical word is aphorism, where you've got like a nugget of wisdom packed in a clever saying. Like one of my favorites is a Belgian proverb, which says, don't expect your ship to come in unless you've sent one out. So that's just kind of a memorable quote there. So that's a little bit about wordplay. And then the final one, this is the one that a lot of stand-ups, like if you watch Netflix and stuff, a lot of stand-ups use this one. It's called amplify.
Yeah.
And usually this is where you take your pain and you just like put it on steroids. You're exaggerating, you're being really expressive. If you've got a microphone, like when I'm working, Jared, on stages, I live and die by a handheld microphone because I can get it right here and amplify the humor. I can go into the audience and get people to talk about and everyone's hearing it. So those are the 5 different humor tactics that I've identified. There are lots of other ways to tap into humor, but I think those are the 5 best go-to laugh languages.
No, it was helpful in the book. I actually had never... I've got a little bit of background in journalism, some acting, some stage stuff. I've just never seen humor put on paper in a way that was structural in that way that I thought, that is so simple and true. It immediately resonated. And I think it can help a lot of leaders as we read through and think through how we laugh and how we help others laugh. I got to ask you, Adam, out of those 5, is there one that you tend to gravitate to? Because you do give us some guidance in the book on, how to find your factor or your humor factor. Which one resonates most with you when you're on stage?
Well, I have to tell you, we actually created a quiz, and I'm not trying to, promote the book. Well, I am, of course.
Well, yeah, that's what this is for. Yeah.
Well, no, I'm looking forward to this man to man. I just love the whole concept, and it almost seems like a fraternity on the air. That's really cool. But I created a quiz with my daughter's help, and in 4 minutes you can discover your laugh language. And people are surprised because they might think, well, I'm really good at poking fun at other people, but it turns out no, you're really more into wordplay. And so it asks you a number of questions, and in a few minutes you can fill out. It'll identify your laugh language, and then it'll give you tips for how to best use it. But if I could only choose one of the 5 in my work as a speaker, as a master of ceremonies, it would be in-jokes. Because my goal is not to have them remembering me or talking about me when we're done. My goal is to have them go, can you believe that Gabriel said that? Or I had no idea that Tina was such a great singer. I want them talking about their group. I want them deepening their bonds as a community. And I do love language, as I know you do. I don't think it's a coincidence that the same root word, comedy and community, is there. And so I think when we're laughing together,
right,
it's more powerful than just, oh, he's really funny.
It's so true. No, those common experiences, that commentatus, as you would say, is so important, and it carries a lot further, even than a really clever joke, because we felt like we went through it together.
You just impressed me with that word. I'm actually going to write it down.
That's my wife. That's my wife. She's the real smart one. But we talk a lot about, just because in my work I deal a lot with, like 99.9% men. And we've been talking about just like the ways that men relate to each other or maybe need help relating to one another. She actually wrote a paper on this in college. That is so impressive. She's the human growth and development expert master in my back pocket. And so many other things to me, but wow. she's amazing. So that comes from her. Gotta give credit.
Well, my wife is actually funnier and a better writer than I am. And so if I can make her laugh, at home, I go, well, then this will probably work on stage.
Oh, it's so true.
But I want to talk a little bit more about in-jokes for a moment. Like, they become very personal and very treasured. So when I was going to college, I have a friend, David, and we are still, this is decades later, but we are still very close friends. Every couple of years, we will mail each other this book that we had in college, just a silly book, and we'll write a new inscription on it like it's a brand new gift. And it's kind of a silly thing.
Yeah.
But I never know when I'm going to get it, when he has it, and same with him. And it's just like this bond that we built. And so you really want to open your ears to, when you're hanging out with your friends, your classmates, people at your church or your work, is like, what is resonating? What can I call back later? And again, you don't even have to try to tell it in a funny way. It might be as simple as saying, hey, Jared, tell us about that time you tried to photocopy, your face on the printer or whatever. And then everybody laughs like, I remember that.
Yeah. It's so true. Well, man, so we've got guys who I think are listening, and I hope what they experience in the book and through this podcast is that you're actually equipping them to think about and to find where they are funny, where they can share that. But for the guy who feels like, I'm not funny, and maybe could use a little more joy in his life, what would you say to help him find his own style of humor that both honors Christ and connects with others?
I think it goes back to what makes you laugh. Like my wife and I have a comedian friend who absolutely destroys me. And if I show a clip to my wife, she's like, yeah, he's okay. Whereas she might bust up at somebody else. So it's it's almost like music, I like classic rock and somebody else likes country. And so it's there's no rule to it. It's what you enjoy. But chances are, even if you think you don't have a sense of humor, and I would challenge that, I think you do, every person. But what you enjoy is what you want to share with other people. Years ago, you are probably a way better actor than I am. I got fired from an acting job one time on the set, but that's another story. I had this acting professor who was like unbelievable, Yale professor acting. And I would read my lines and try to be all dramatic. And he stopped me and he said, Adam, I don't feel that you're enjoying this. So I was doing it in a mechanical way. And so when I'm giving a speech, for example, a workshop, whatever it is, I've learned a little secret that they're going to enjoy whatever I'm saying more if I'm enjoying it.
Right.
So sometimes we feel like, oh, I have to have all the answers. Got to get my content together. Like if you're doing a presentation, I got to get my slides, my PowerPoint. No, it's a heart to heart thing. And so if you're enjoying, even if you feel nervous, and another friend of mine from college days, we were playing disc golf one day, And I confessed to him, I said, Doug, I've done literally thousands of events now, and I still get nervous every single time.
Yeah.
And he said, good. That means you care. And that really struck me. So when you feel like, I heard someone say, when you feel the butterflies in your stomach, just get them to fly in formation. That's really adrenaline that you're feeling. So if you can channel that. So back to your question a moment ago is, person who doesn't feel like they're funny, I think they are. But next is, don't worry about being funny. But if you can help your listener, your college roommate, people in your Bible study, whatever it is, if you can help them have fun and relax, you are now kind of the orchestrator of a good time instead of being the star.
Man to Men is made possible in part by our partners at Southern Seminary. Guys, if you're sensing a call to ministry, you already know that's a serious calling. The question is how you'll respond with faithfulness. That's why Southern Seminary has created a resource to help you think through your next steps. At sbts.edu/called, you'll find biblical wisdom for discerning your calling and encouragement for following God's direction. And when you're ready to prepare, Southern Seminary is here with the Master of Divinity, the trusted degree designed to ground you in God's Word and equip you for a lifetime of ministry. So, if God's stirring in your heart for gospel service, take the first step. Visit sbts.edu/called and begin preparing to answer His call with faithfulness. One thing that comes out as I listen to and read you, Adam, is that you very much are about the things that the Bible tells us to be about, which is others.
Yeah.
And that has to come out in your humor. And some of the guidance you give along these lines is you say, if in doubt, leave it out, especially with sarcasm, politics, those kinds of things. So as a Christian man speaking to other Christian men, what guardrails do you advise putting around your humor just to ensure that it builds up, that's the command, and doesn't tear down?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I believe the Apostle Paul actually addresses this, and he says, let no unwholesome word come out of your mouth. And a lot of people stop there and they think he just means, well, no cussing. But if you read the scripture, especially, and I don't know the Greek or Hebrew, but I have books that explain what those words are.
Same.
There's some pretty salty language in there. But what Paul adds at the end of that comment is he says something like, but whatever is appropriate for the moment or something like that.
Yes.
What he's saying is context is everything. So I might joke around with a college friend in a way that I would not joke around with my daughters, with my wife, with my business associates. And so know the room. But I think maybe more important than reading the room, you've heard that saying a lot, like read the room, is feel the room. Is what I'm about to say going to build up or tear people down? And I'll tell you, with humor, that's a real temptation to use sarcasm, cutting humor. But you'll notice, for example, Jesus, I believe, was a master of sarcasm, but I can't find a single place where he makes fun of an individual.
That's right.
He might make a comment talking about the scribes, for example, but he never says, Joshua over there is an idiot, right? And sometimes as men, the shortcut for us is to just slam each other. And there might be a place for that if somebody knows, hey, this guy loves me, it's cool.
Yeah.
But go back to, if in doubt, leave it out.
Is there a time when the humor landed wrong for you? I'm digging a little bit here, or just where you sensed you had overstepped. How'd you handle that, and what did that occurrence teach you?
Do you mean today?
Oh yeah, so true, man.
Well,
maybe just pick one.
Man, I have literally made every possible mistake you can make, and so many of the lessons I share in the book come from examples that are bad ones that are mine. I one time lit a stage on fire. I've introduced people on the platform by the wrong name. One time I was introducing someone, and I mentioned my grandfather earlier. The speaker before this musician I was about to introduce was talking about his struggle with God and his purpose, and it was like wrestling. And he was talking about alcoholism and stuff. And this has never happened to me before or since, but I burst into tears just as I was about to go on the platform. And I was trying to make the introduction of this guest artist, and I really couldn't do it. I was weeping. And so the musician put his arm around me, and I talked through the intro, and I thought to myself, I've just blown it. I'm I'm supposed to be a professional event host. And what happened is the opposite impact with the attendees of this particular event. They said, hey, we appreciate you. Now we know you get us. And so it goes back to really the word might be empathy. Yeah. Sometimes we feel sympathy, which means, I feel sorry for you. But empathy is I feel with you.
Another word I want to talk with you about is curiosity. Because as I was listening to you on HBR and as I was reading the book, that's one thing that kept coming out to me is what role does curiosity play in humor, do you think, or in being humorous?
Well, I might throw you a curveball here, but this saying stuck with me. I think it was the motivational guru, Tony Robbins, who said, power is always in the hands of the person asking questions. And I think it was Bob Goff, great speaker, author, who I heard him say something like Jesus asked 300 and some odd questions and only answered like 3 or 4 of them.
Yes.
And so curiosity to me comes back to asking great questions. And so instead of asking how questions like, how are we going to do this? Those are fine too, but ask why, why are we doing this? Why are we gathering? What's the purpose? When you ask those bigger questions, the why questions, the curiosity questions, going to get deeper answers. And I think as leaders, people are silently begging to be led. And so if you understand the why, you can be a better leader than just the mechanics of, okay, we're going to meet at this time and this guy's bringing the coffee and someone else is bringing donuts. So that's all good stuff.
Right.
But why? Why are we meeting? What is the purpose of this? And so you'll find that most comedians, myself included, are actually pretty serious people. And so you can be funny, you can get people laughing and still not come off like a clown. And actually, there's nothing wrong with being a clown. It's gotten a bad reputation. But some of the great entertainers of all time have really been clowns, like we mentioned Lucille Ball earlier.
Yeah.
But it goes back to what is the intent of your communication? Do you want to build people up? Do you want to lead them? Do you have a vision? And then use humor as a tool for helping them follow and feel what you're saying, right? Another friend of mine who's been a mentor, though he's not much older than me, is Bill Butterworth. And I'll never forget when he said, when you're communicating with people, think of it as like building a house. You want more windows and less lumber. You want people to see into your heart, see where you're going. And so as men, this can be really challenging because we, it's kind of a stereotype, but there's something to it. We want to look tough. We want to look strong.
Right. In control. Yeah.
Yeah. But when you open up your heart and get vulnerable, it's like a magnet, people are like, oh, I didn't know he struggles with that. So do I. He went through financial disaster. That's what I'm going through right now. And so we can relate to each other. We can bear each other's burdens, right?
That's good. It takes a lot of humility to do that.
Yeah. And I think sometimes we walk around and we go, hey, Adam's a really humble guy. Jared's a really humble guy. But I think humility is a choice sometimes, right? A choice to serve others, to empty yourself and think, how can I build other people up? And one heads up I'll give your listeners is don't forget to receive the things you give other people. There's really only one God and he's not you, right? He's not me. And so that's actually a relief. So I don't have to fix everybody, but I need to make sure that I'm also plugged in and receiving mentoring, coaching, accountability. Then I'm in a better place to be that leader.
That's good. Well, here's a real world leadership scenario for you. I'm interested in what you're going to say on this. If I'm heading into, let's just say, a group study for our college listeners, or a meeting, for our guys who are out of college and just in, like 9 to 5 every day. if I'm heading into that situation and I'm thinking ahead and I want to bring a dose of joy, if you will, but I don't want to be awkward. I just want to lighten the room. Is there anything that I could plan or say ahead of time to safely step into funny territory? How would you coach that in a sense?
I love this question. Do you have any others?
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
No, I think sometimes we think comedy is just wit, and it can be a big piece. And so we put this pressure on ourselves. I got to get up there and just crack the best joke. And that might work for you. But one thing I do, in fact, I was, I had to do this just recently. I get people physically involved. And you might have heard me talk about this a little bit on the Harvard Business Review, but in that situation, I was looking at a classroom of young women who were all athletes. And I could just tell they weren't comfortable. I didn't like right now. I can see you and hear you face to face, ear to ear. So what I decided to do is just get them physically involved. And so you can do this as a leader, like have people stand, do an icebreaker. Like the other night I was leading, maybe there were 100 people. And so there's not really space to let everybody share, but I had them at their tables. I couldn't believe how simple this was, Jared. And yet it just rocked the room. I said, describe either the hottest or coldest day you've ever experienced, right?
Good.
So I thought that's just like a no-brainer. But I started hearing people laughing, busting up like it was 120 degrees in, the desert in Palm Springs or whatever. And
people start amplifying real quick with that one, don't they?
No, exactly. Yeah. Somebody from Fargo's like, well, I could beat that. Right. It was mine, whatever. But even weather is something we can all relate to. Like, what is the first car you ever drove? And let me ask you that. Do you remember what was your first one?
Yeah, it was a 1990 Chevy Silverado, white.
Okay. So that makes me think of the first car I ever drove. And I've asked people that, and somebody might say, well, actually, I was only 15 and I stole my parents' car. Like, what? And pretty soon you're sharing stories and people are opening up, and it's like the laughter. So I love this. Mark Twain, who I think is the greatest humorist in American history, he said, it takes me 3 weeks to prepare a good impromptu speech.
Yes.
So it's what I call planned spontaneity. So in the book, I talk about examples of icebreakers and questions you can ask. And so again, your role is not to be the funny guy, though if you're naturally funny in a group setting, go for it. But I do think you can be the facilitator of fun.
I love that. Would that we had more of us as leaders facilitate more fun.
Yes. And I feel like I'm a quote machine today, Jared, but what was that classic movie? I guess No, it was Mary Poppins, right? And she sings, a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. And so humor, and again, all of the studies like Oxford and Gallup, all the research is showing people are isolating, they're feeling depressed. But when we give people even a hard message with some humor, it just makes it so much easier to digest and to accept, right? Yeah. So when I was growing up as a young man and when I was a youth pastor, they talked about this idea of hook, book, look, took. I don't know if you've ever heard that.
Yes.
Hook their attention, then you get into the meat of what you're going to say, blah, blah, blah. Well, today, I think we live in the attention economy, which means the most valuable thing we have is our attention. And so to be wise, I recommend hook, book, hook, just keep adding hooks, add a joke, add a provocative question, have people stand, just mix it up because the goal is not really entertainment, it's engagement.
So true. This wasn't in the pregame, Adam, but as you're talking, I'm thinking about some of what you're talking about is just like relearning how to play as an adult. What role does learning or relearning how to play into you being a humorous leader who can lift the room?
Well, I don't know the stat off the top of my head, but I know it's in the book. There's some staggering statistic that shows that as like preschoolers, we're laughing dozens and dozens of times a day. And then as we age, less and less laughter. And that makes sense, because we have more responsibilities. We've got classes, we've got jobs, we have a wife, we've got to provide for kids.
Right.
And so that makes sense.
Right.
And so I think we have to be intentional about it. And so, like if you're playing any game, right? Like I love disc golf. I love shooting hoops. I'm a chess addict.
Love it.
And what's the common thing? They all have rules, right? So think about, and rules sound diminishing, like, oh no, I hate rules. But anything you want to do, including leading a moral, high impact life, there's rules, right? So think of the rules of play and create a game with your family, or and there's some great board games out there. For example, that get people not just moving tokens around, but like I think there's one called Hot Seat where people share something and you have to guess, is this person describing themselves? And it's like, it's not even a comedy game, but people end up laughing.
Right.
So to really answer your question, I would say plan to play, like schedule it in. So if you're leading a study and you don't want this to take over because you want to get into your study, but you might have 10 minutes where you're asking a really funny, interesting question that gets people feeling more connected before you launch into your study. So plan for play.
That's good. That's good. If you had 60 seconds, Adam, with a guy who just says like, man, I feel numbed, I feel stressed, I maybe even feel broken. Just wondering if there's even any joy to be found. What would you say about the power of laughter and faith that can really restart something real in a man's story if he's finding himself in that dark place?
Well, what a question. I'll try to answer it in 60 seconds. So there's a famous story about a man, a patient who goes to see the therapist. He's so depressed. And he says, I'm so down. I just don't know if I can go on living. And the therapist is thinking, how can I help this guy quick? And he says, oh, laughter's the best medicine. There's a circus in town. Go to the circus. They have a clown who's hilarious. You'll feel so much better. Lighten your load. And the patient says, I am the clown. And there's something to that.
Yeah, there is.
I think comedians, managers, pastors, teachers were often wounded healers. And so I would answer your question probably not with laughter, but with deeper listening. One more quick story. I was just getting out of university and a friend of mine said, my girlfriend and I broke up. I was in a motorcycle accident and I really need your advice. And I thought, oh, okay. So we met up and I just made a choice. I'm just going to deeply listen to him so he feels so heard. And I did for me, I don't know, 45 minutes or something. I'll never forget what he said after that. I didn't give any advice. He said, you've given me the best advice I've ever received.
Yeah.
And all I really did was deeply listen to him. And I would echo back and say, it sounds like you're feeling this. And so if someone's in that deep place of pain, I think what they might need most is feeling truly heard. And I think the laughter will emerge from that in relationship. But I would say go for the connection before the comedy.
It's well done, Pastor. Good job.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's great. Adam, if you've got a couple more minutes, I like to end most of our shows with a little segment we call Everywhere, Every Day. This is a more personal conversation with our guests on just how they live and move and be. One thing that stands out to me about you is that I think you're a very intentional man. I think you're an interesting man because you're an interested man. And so I think that you're known as the funny guy, but what's something that you wish more people knew about you past the resume?
Oh, thank you. I think a lot of people might think, oh, he's so extroverted. I'm fairly extroverted, but I would, if I have a choice, like, hey, you're invited to a party or you can read a book, I'll probably go with the book because it feeds my mind and my heart. So that was probably it. You don't have to be an extrovert to tap into the laughter factor.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. So you've got you travel quite a bit. Your schedule varies from time to time. How do you as a man just care for your own body, for your own physicality?
Well, here, to be really transparent, this is not an area of strength in my life. In fact, sometimes just the other night, I said to the gathered people, I said, at this hotel, they put scales in the room.
Oh, man.
And I'm like, that is so cruel. I said, I got it on the scale and I looked down and it said 1 at a time, please. But one thing I have learned is the exercise that you will do the most is the type you actually enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm heading on the road, I will almost always slip a couple of discs, like frisbees, disc golfs, discs, in my suitcase. And then I ask my friend Siri, nearest disc golf course, and I have 3 hours to kill.
Yep.
I'll take an Uber, rent a car, whatever, and I'll play 18 holes or something. And just getting outside, and if I can do that with a friend, that's even more fun. So we can sometimes feel like we have to be, muscle machines, and for some guys, that's awesome. But I think it's if you can combine fun and fitness, you're going to do it better.
It's great. It's great. And you talked about comedians and even just people who present publicly, pastors, leaders. A lot of us are wounded healers. How do you care for your own soul, Adam?
I'm surrounded by some really good friends who like, Adam, it's great that you're an author. It's great that you do all these gigs. But I'll give you one example. Mark Green is a dear friend and a mentor to me. And I feel supported by him in my career and all that good stuff. But he's the first thing he's going to say to me is, how's your marriage? The second thing he's going to say is like, tell me about church. And it's just so refreshing to have other men willing. There's an old saying, I don't know if you've heard this one, but caring enough to confront.
Yeah.
And ask those tough questions. So don't just surround yourself with yes men. I mean, it's great to have encouragement. I think men mistakenly think that they have to have their girlfriend or their wife's or their mom's or validation all the time. No, that's actually a turnoff to our wives, for example. So I seek validate. First of all, I believe there's no condemnation, right? So the biggest pressure's off my shoulders right off the bat. But next is I want to hang with men. Whether it's something like Holy Smokes, I don't know if you've heard about that.
Yeah.
Sit around, they talk theology and have a cigar, or whether it's with my son. We'll crack open an Alistair Begg devotional book and go through it together. I get a lot of recharge from hanging out with other men who will hold me accountable.
Oh, that's good. That's good. What are places in the Bible that you enjoy going the most, Adam? This isn't necessarily you're moving through a Bible reading plan. This is more what I call just off-roading. You get to go wherever you want to in the book. What are the passages or people that you find yourself returning to the most?
Yeah. Well, first I have to say, you have to be careful with that. Some people use the Bible or even any book, but especially the Bible, almost like when I was a kid, that we had this thing called the Magic 8 Ball, where you'd ask the 8 Ball a question, does she like me? And it would say, it's yet to be determined. And sometimes we'll just open it up like it's this magic book. And, the scripture is like history, theology, prophecy, poetry. And so I think we want to be really good students that way.
That's good.
But to really answer your question.
Biola has done you well. Yeah. We're very proud of you right now. Good job.
Yeah, thank you. One time, in fact, I was a youth pastor and I was running late. I'm notoriously running late for things. And I forgot that I'd put my Bible on top of the car when I was getting my water, whatever. And I go, where is it? And I couldn't find it. And then on the drive back, I found it on the street. But one book had like almost mysteriously, the entire book came out, and it was the book of Romans. And I think, there's so many places you could go, but for me, it has it all. The ultimate pain, our brokenness, the answer, and then encouragement. There's no condemnation. And then examples of how to live and how to think. And so there's so many places I love, but that is my go-to book.
That's great. What are some go-to podcasts or media for you, Adam? Guilty pleasures are welcome. You could even just get into favorite comedy of all time. Would love to hear about just some of your favorites.
I might surprise people on this one because I was on a flight the other day, and this couple, we were busting up, and I gave them my book, and we're pals now. But they kept naming all these comedians. I'm like, no, I haven't heard of him. No, I haven't heard of her. And so I think you want to be careful that you don't just draw from your own well. that you listen to other voices. So I love philosophy. I love apologetics. I love debate. And so a guilty pleasure might be watching the Piers Morgan show, or I'll watch, what's that guy? The skeptical atheist. I want to hear, I want to hear different perspectives. We have to be careful we're not in the echo chamber, right? Right. I agree. It's like, as men, I think we want to be challenged. And so I wasn't planning on doing this, but I noticed I have it right here. A book that I read years ago, one of the only books I've read twice, is called The Denial of Death. This is not a Christian book. This is not a pastoral book, but it won the Pulitzer Prize, and it's a game changer in remembering that you are mortal, that your time on earth is limited. And so, as Francis Schaeffer once wrote, I think it was, how shall we then live? So I love podcasts, books that really ask the big questions. And I appreciate how you go deeper than the surface with Man to Men.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, bro. I love it. We've got a lot of guys who are willing to go there with me. So thank you for playing today. If I could ask Adam, if you had to define hey, this is kind of like what makes me laugh. It can be movies, those kinds of things. Like, so for instance, one of mine would be, it's just like, I really enjoy Muppet humor. Like that, like I could point to that and say, that's kind of, I could circle that and say, I enjoy that. What are some of those for you?
Well, I grew up a gigantic Steve Martin fan.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah.
Love Martin Short. I had the privilege of emceeing an event, and he was the comedian, and we're backstage, and he's running jokes by me. I'm like, wait a second, you're Martin Short.
Right.
And he's like, should I do this one? You know, it was really fun. But I don't have one answer to that, because I almost like the classic fool. Like maybe the greatest, in my opinion, is Stan Laurel from the comedy team Laurel and Hardy. And some of your listeners may never even heard of them, but their comedy goes back to, I don't know, the 1930s.
Hey, guys, you could go check it out on YouTube.
Yeah. Like if you were to Google the Music Box, where these guys try to get a full grand size piano up a set of stairs, and it's just the silliest thing. And it's just like laugh after laugh. Yeah. And Laurel was a very bright guy, but he was willing to look like a fool. And maybe that ties back to a scriptural reference, right? You know, are you willing to be a fool?
Man, really.
I'm okay looking silly if it's for a purpose.
Amen. Well, Adam, thanks for guesting today. You've got thousands of praying men listening to you right now as they mow the lawn, they run, they drive to work, whatever it may be. How can we pray for you as we're listening right now?
I appreciate that. Well, I just posted something crazy on LinkedIn. I wasn't planning to mention this,
that crazy place, LinkedIn. Yeah.
Yeah. My mom is the funniest person I know, like for real. And she just cracks me up. But I would ask for prayer because we took her to the Billy Graham Library about a week ago. And it was like taking a kid to Disneyland. She was just like loving it. And unfortunately, right when she got home, she got COVID and had a little fall. And, so she's so dear to me. So I would ask for prayer for her recovery and health.
Can do. You mind sharing your mom's first name?
Oh, yeah. Marianne.
Marianne. We're going to be praying for Marianne, Adam. And just for your continued ministry.
Thank you, man. I've enjoyed being on your show.
Oh, I've really enjoyed having you, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we had some laughs, and and I know I could learn a lot from you too.
Oh, you're very kind. You're very kind. May the Lord bless you and keep you, brother.
Thanks again.
Man to Men is powered by Beta Upsilon Chi, commonly referred to as Bucks. Everywhere, every day. Bucks men are raising families, leading in organizations, and strengthening churches to impact our communities for Christ. You can find out more about Beta Upsilon Chi by transliterating our Greek letters and adding a .org. That's byx.org. Man to Men is produced, rather well I might add, by the good gentlemen of the Good Podcast Company. For Beta Upsilon Chi, I'm Dr. Jared Musgrove with Man to Men.